Hi there. Can anybody hear me okay? Ah, cool. Hi, Teddy. Can you hear me all right? How's it going, guys? Bear with me. I have not live streamed on YouTube in 7.5 years. So I need to remember how to do this, and it's going to be very awkward. So thanks for joining me while I figure out how to do this again. I'm getting too old for this stuff. I appreciate you all coming. So I guess as a starter, I'm curious what brought you to my channel and what questions can I answer for you? Let's see if we can get this thing to work out here. I appreciate you stopping by a lot. Good deal. Wrist check. I broke out my 16570 Explorer 2. I've had this watch since, oh man, 2016, and it's been serviced once. It's been to Japan. It's been back and forth to Memphis, Tennessee for business trips too much. It's kind of been around the world. American Stranger one, pretty good. You got a break in the weather. So what's the weather been like? Where I'm at, we had snow last week. This weekend it was 40 degrees, then 80 degrees, and today it's 70 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit. So it's been bizarre. Hey, Patel Philippe. Yeah, good to see you over here, sir. I'm just screwing around and see if I can remember how to do this. Thanks for stopping by. Teddy, you've been around since the early days. Wow, that's a scary thought because I've been on YouTube now for 16 years, 17 years. That's a scary, scary thought. You're in Memphis. Okay. I heard you guys actually had some weather this week. I heard that the FedEx hub was backed up. Okay. That makes total sense now. American Stranger used to have the Black Dial Explorer. I'm curious why you sold it. These watches, they don't tend to be long-term ownership for most people. I think I've had mine longer than most. But yeah, I'm curious what you sold that one for. What'd you swap it out for? And then Teddy, you're in Memphis. I used to go to Memphis all the time for business. I used to go to Germantown, Goodlet Farms area, if that means anything to you, quite a bit. And I used to stay at the Peabody downtown Memphis. I'm based in Texas. American Stranger, you're in the Northwest. The Northwest is one of my favorite parts of the United States. I'm curious where you're at. I was just in, help me, Cannon Beach in Oregon a little bit less than a year ago. And then the area around Seattle and Bainbridge Island and Bremerton and, oh man, the Pacific Northwest is gorgeous. Vancouver, Alaska. Oh, you're lucky. I'm going to be socially awkward today while I get back in my rhythm. What would you all like to talk about? uh, Memphis shuts down with snow. Yeah, Texas is the same way. If we get even the slightest bit of snow or ice, the entire town shuts down. And where I live, it's honestly really hilly. So you don't get snow plows. They don't clean the streets, and you are guaranteed a traffic accident if you try to back out of your driveway or drive to work on a snowy or icy day. So you sold the Explorer for something you can't remember. You're young and stupid. You're in Portland. I was just in Portland as well. I really I enjoyed your waterfront. I went and toured the submarine museum there. I'm a bit of a sub nerd, So those are all gauges from nuclear submarines from the Cold War. And what is it? The Blueback? I can't remember. I'm going to get this wrong. It's one of the last diesel submarines of the more modern nuclear design. So I was really excited to go see it. And Portland was really nice. If you watch the news, obviously it was not getting a lot of public press that was positive. I actually really enjoyed my time in Portland a lot. And then driving out to Astoria was a beautiful drive. Oh, cool. We got some people going here. Thank you all for the comments. Teddy P, best value prop from Swatch Group that isn't a PRX. I mean, this is going to sound pretty obvious, but I mean, I think the PRX is actually the best value. The Powermatic 80, you can get them for $500. I think that's the best watch for the money, honestly. But the Hamilton Khaki collection, I mean, this is not an odd thing to say. I think the Hamilton Khaki collection is another one up there. If you like the more like military camo strap, NATO strap kind of thing, I really think that there's a ton of value there. And that's something that I've never seen anybody be disappointed in, quite honestly. Ryan Stallings. Oh man, that is so kind of you. So 2017, that is a very different world. That was 8 years ago. That was pre-COVID. That was pre a lot of things. I guess I'm curious, what random video did you get recommended? Because I think at that time, I was still like just doing like cookie videos every week and really silly stuff back when I had a sense of humor. So I'm curious, honestly, what you watched. But that's very kind of you. I really appreciate that. American Stranger, you were at the Blueback today. Yeah. I'm curious what you thought about that. When I was just on it, the engine room was closed off, so I didn't get to see much of it. And it was typical Portland weather, so it was 40 degrees out and raining, but it was still a pretty cool experience. Super Map, you're wearing your Grand Seiko Black Birch. Oh, I love the Black Birch. The White Birch, when I was in Japan 3 months ago, I was at a market called Nakano Broadway. It's just northwest of Shinjuku. It's mostly center Tokyo, and they have all these resale shops of like really high-end watches. And one of the stereotypes of Japan, and it's true, is that everything is like immaculately maintained. So all the watches that you can get used there are like pristine. And what was really cool is they had a bunch of white birches there. They were everywhere, but I didn't see a black birch, and I looked for those. That dial is just like, it's crazy the way the light catches that sometimes. I've never really seen anything quite like it. It is one of those dials that like really catches your eye. What else is going on? Grand Seiko wise, I know I made a comment on my video last Saturday. I've been having a lot of bad luck with Seiko lately, and I don't want to be a negative person on Seiko, because quite honestly, they are one of my favorite watch companies. And I still have my Monster, I still have my Sumo, I had a Presage, I had a Sarb 35 that broke. That's probably my favorite Seiko I've ever owned. But my Grand Seiko I just bought back in October. It is already keeping horrible time, like negative 20-30 seconds a day. And then what really, I just sent it into service in New Jersey. The date changing mechanism broke. So originally it wouldn't change dates at all, and I didn't do anything to damage. I don't know what happened to it. And then eventually it was literally changing the date 1 hour different every day. So if it changed at midnight on one day, it changed at 1 a.m. the next day, and so on. It just kept skipping ahead. So I don't know what happened to the date mechanism, but it's totally messed up. So I really hope your Black Birch is treating you well. I, for whatever reason, can't catch a break with Seiko, and it's kind of bothering me. Value prop question, Teddy Music. You're wearing a 35 PRX right now. Oh, you got that size. Yeah, I don't understand why there's so much hatred towards like mid-size watches. 35 millimeter, I think, is a perfectly wearable size. I mean, I'm 6'3" and I'm a little bit larger, so to me it's a little bit smaller. But I have a 36 mil President, and I think 36 mil is the right size. 35 mil, I think, is a great size. And we had this whole thing 10 years ago. Watch sizes kind of got really ridiculous. I mean, you saw the what is it, the 44, the 46, the 48. I think I even saw 52 millimeter watches that were pretty common. I'm thinking of Invicta, right? I definitely think that 35 millimeter is a little underrepresented, and I think it's cool you have one. Ricardo, will you ever own a SARB 35 again? I'm a little snake bit, to be honest. That watch, I know this sounds so dramatic and this is such a first world problem. I loved that watch. Legitimately loved that watch. I had mine. I made a video on it. I can't remember when this was. I want to say this was 2016. It was easily my favorite watch I'd owned to that point. And at that point, I'd had a Rolex Daytona and some other stuff. I know this sounds ridiculous. I really like things that are understated, and I don't like really flashy stuff. I mean, I have a President, some other stuff, but by and large, I like understated stuff. And that was a real watch collector's watch. That was a 6-arm movement. But the fact that mine broke within 6 months of owning it, honestly, it's kind of, I'm a little afraid to own another one. I do occasionally look on eBay to see if there's any good deals on them from Japan, and I've looked for more, but I don't know. I think I have a little too much trauma at this point, but I do absolutely adore the SARB 35 to this day. I think it's again one of my favorite watches I've ever owned, and that's not an exaggeration. Mr. GMT. Mr. Audi TT. Good to see you, sir. Thanks for hopping over. I'm just messing around remembering how to do a live stream, so thanks for stopping by. This is a total experiment with no plot. Ricardo, you bought your SARB 35 years ago because you still hits just as it did on day one. Oh, good. So you still have yours. I'm really happy to hear that. I think the problem that I have with YouTube is there's a lot of reviews out there that people just make up nonsense and they're just like, everything is the greatest thing ever, or whatever. That is legitimately a watch that I owned that I thought was every bit as good as I said it was. And I try to be very honest about watches in general, but that watch, I mean, it really was, especially at the time in the US. A lot of the stuff Seiko was selling in the US when that watch came out was quartz, gold plated, kind of chintzy stuff. And that was like a revelation for them. And when the Alpinist came around that time too, I mean, this is before you really started seeing a lot of stuff in the US market. That was a real game changer. And I'm really happy to hear you still have yours and you still like yours. And I really wish I could say the same. When mine broke, I gave it to a friend who was studying watchmaking, and our friendship ended and I never got the watch back. So I have the bracelet from my SARB 35, but the head is long gone and who knows what came of it. Ricardo, what looks better, newer Datejust or older ones? 80 to 90s models. I love the older 36 ones more. I'm a big guy about rocking a 36 all day. One of the things that I think is part of Rolex's success, and this is stating the obvious, is they tend to keep the same design over time, which makes them timeless. And that's such a play on words, right? But the older ones, to me, especially the more like the 70s ones, I like because they have a little bit more of a depth to their dials. The ones from the 80s to me are very similar to the modern ones. A lot of those from the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s are the 31, 35 movement. So they're all the same powertrain. They're pretty reliable, very serviceable. The issue with the older Datejust in general, I have no issue with them. I quite like them a lot, and I wouldn't say that I like them any less than a modern one, is the older ones did not have the solid links. And so that's especially a problem when you're looking at the two-tone Datejust, and especially on the Jubilee bracelet, which is what most of them were. You probably know this, but those bracelets can stretch a lot. And so over time, it's very common to see those bracelets start to fall apart, and it's just they're not as rigid or well constructed as the newer ones. I think they're quite a good deal on the second market if you get one that's a stainless steel one or one where the bracelet broke and you put it on a strap, because it's basically the same watch they sell today except for the bracelet, and the bracelet's what you're paying for. 36 millimeter wise, right? Like I have a 36 mil Rolex President, and I think that's just the size of what a President should be. The newer 40 millimeter size, I'm a classic guy. But I think they did a nice job stretching the case too, so you really can't go wrong. But again, the big ding against the older ones is that the bracelet stretch, but that's about the worst you could say about them. Tobetster Madaki. Oh, hey, man. Archie's dancing around in his underwear in the garage while Narc yells in his nightmare torture voice. Thanks for providing a better This was not meant to be any sort of competition to Archie's channel at all. Quite honestly, I really enjoy his streams. They're a lot of entertainment. I was going to jump on tonight with a good friend of mine that is part of quite a few watch societies in the US, and we were going to do a stream, and he couldn't make it. And so this was me honestly just trying to get a sense of, do I remember how to do this after it's been 7 years, and can I make this work? So the fact that you can hear me and I have a dialogue going says I haven't totally screwed this up, and good to see you over here, and good to see you in general. Ricardo, you showed your coworker your SARB 35, and the dude was like, yeah, literally WTF, absolutely mesmerized. He couldn't get over it. It was a stunner. 4 to 6 years ago. Yeah, I mean, again, that, I assume it was the same for you. When you thought of Seiko, you didn't think of a watch of that quality. I mean, Seikos that I think of from the 90s and 2000s, especially, that were sold in the US, they were not great watches. I mean, they were fine, but they were like a Fossil or something. They were gold plated, just very cheap feeling, stamped case back, snap-on case back. That watch, the clasp on that watch, when that watch came out, I mean, it puts, I mean, we're talking about Datejust, it puts 90s Datejust to shame. I mean, the clasp was really nice. It had solid links on it, the open case back. The movement was decently decorated, the dial, and especially if you were into Grand Seiko, I mean, it is basically a Grand Seiko. I want to say it was like the SBGR line at the time that was similar to it with the 6S movement, but it's versus the 6R. It was a lot of bang for the buck, and honestly just a really nice watch that, again, I'm glad you still like, and I wish I still had. Ricardo, you had a Datejust 16013 two-tone champagne dial, loved it, miss it. I'm a Datejust lover big time. It's funny, I just saw a survey and they were comparing the Datejust to the Rolex President. And in the survey, most people prefer the Datejust over the President. And I've kind of gotten the impression that, especially when it comes to like precious metal watches, people tend to prefer the two-tone over the solid gold. The Datejust is just one of those watches. It's a classic. And there's certain Rolexes that, like the Milgauss, which I like a lot. That's a love it or hate it watch. A Datejust is a watch that everybody knows what it is. Everybody respects it for the most part. And especially, I mean, if you think about the 80s or 90s, that was kind of the it watch. So I very much like the 16013. I had a generation right after that. I had I've had several. That's a scary thought. I had like a 94 S serial two-tone white dial Roman numeral, which is kind of why I have my current President. It's basically that watch, but solid gold. I had a late 2000s 36 black dial, and I'm missing one. I can't remember, but it's a classic. Kyle C, any chance you want to give me your Patek? I'm not really happy with my Patek right now, to be honest with you. I just got it back from service, and I don't know what the heck I did to it, but I banged it on something, and I got a little, it's not really a chip because it's not glass, but I got like a little ding in the white gold bezel that goes around it. And I, like a total moron, don't do this. Took some like Cape Cod polishing cloths and tried to make it better, and it looks slightly off to me, and my OCD is really really getting up there. But that's a watch that grew on me. Transparently, when I first got the Calatrava, it was a little underwhelming because it is such a subtle, it's very thin. It's hyper thin. It's a watch that unless you know what it is, you don't really know what it is. And I got the President the same week, and the President got all my wrist time. The Patek has actually really snuck up on me, and up until it got randomly damaged recently and triggered my OCD, it's honestly my most go-to watch, because it's if you know, you know, if you don't know, nobody looks at it. I'm not worried about people spotting it on my wrist. I'm not worried about, getting mugged or whatever with it. And it's just, there's a lot of little details on it that are really, really nice. Like the way they did the brushing on the side of the case, the dial, the way they did the individual markers at the minute tracks in gold. There's just a lot of little details on that watch that really, really set it apart. I think it's absurdly overpriced for what it is. I mean, obviously I paid for it and I don't mind it, but it is if it was a Vacheron Patrimony, I could have bought the watch for 12 grand plus less. So it's kind of crazy, but it's a great watch. Oh, cool. We're getting some comments. I appreciate this. Let me catch up. Getting into watches, Ricardo, many years ago, you were one of the first guys to stumble across. I'm checking in on all the IOGs. I'm so happy to see you're still here. Much love, man. Thank you, Ricardo. I'm honestly surprised anybody remembers me. I really do appreciate that. I mean, I've been off of YouTube now until recently, multiple years, and it's crazy that people still remember me. So thank you for that. I'm glad you found my nonsense videos useful, and I really am. I did those videos a lot, and YouTube in general. This has never been an income thing for me. At best, it bought watch straps for me. I mean, this was never. This is just kind of a hobby, and so I really appreciate you got something out of it. And a lot of it has honestly really just got me into the watch community and meeting a lot of cool people, and that's been the best part of all of this. So I really do appreciate that support. SC, hey SC, do you like the current version Bluesy Submariner or the older version Bluesy Submariner? So I have a Bluesy showing up tomorrow, so this is pretty timely. Unpopular opinion, I prefer the previous generation. So I have a 116613LB. Yeah, 116613LB. It'll be arriving tomorrow. And it is the 40 millimeter size because I just think, I mean, to me, a Submariner is a 40 millimeter watch. I know that's me being old school. I got specifically the flat blue dial. I really like the gold print against the flat blue dial. The Starburst is obviously a very nice dial. I like that the flat blue dial wasn't made for very long. Maybe it'll become collectible one day, probably not. But I really like the contrast of the blue and gold on the dial with the blue and gold of the Cerachrome bezel. The newer one has the white print, which is fine. I really like the blue and gold. And I graduated from the University of Michigan, which their colors are maize and blue. So part of me is like, this is me celebrating my college or whatever. I don't know, but I prefer the slightly older one. How about you? Oh, wow. Thank you, guys. Comments are coming in. I need to hurry up here. Tibetster McDonkey, you got a DJ41. Nice. Ah, the chocolate. Yeah, brown dials are awesome. Love the watch. I'm thinking of selling it soon. I got it at the 80 2 years ago and haven't got my money's worth. Want to get something different. What are you thinking about that? I mean, the Rolex market's really soft right now. I'm not going to lie to you. If you're buying, unless you're looking for like a, is it a GMT, like a Pepsi or something? If you're buying, I think there's a lot of value in the market right now because I think a lot of people during COVID impulse bought and now they need that money for other things. And so I've actually been buying a lot of stuff. Selling a 41 that you bought the 80 2 years ago, you might honestly be a little underside on it. I don't know exactly where they're at. I want to say I've seen those in stainless with like the 18K white bezel in the 8 or 9K range. But that's a beautiful watch. I'm curious what you want to replace it with. Kyle C, figures worth a shot. I thought of the modern JLC Master Control memo box. I really want, but it's a lot of stinky shutter. Yeah, I really regret selling. I've had 2 JLCs. Most recently, I never put this online because I didn't have it that long. I used to have, for a couple of years when I kind of quit YouTube, I had a JLC Reverso Grand GMT, and it had like a moon phase and a day-night indicator, a bunch of stuff that's going to go wrong. But GMT, JLC to me is worthy of all the praise. I love the Memovox collection. I love the Master Control collection. The value of those watches on the second market is crazy. I mean, the Reversos hold their value better than most, but the Master Control, the Memovox, a lot of those, the Polaris, they are, I don't want to say cheap. They're not cheap at all, but compared to their original retail price, they are honestly insane value. And I mean, the only thing that sucks is their service cost. But I definitely get why you lust after that. Marcelo, hello, sir. Greetings from my friend from Japan. Cherry Bryson started around next month. I was just in Japan a couple months ago, sir. I would live in Japan right now, honestly, if I didn't have personal responsibilities. I think you and I have talked about that. Japan is, I don't know. It feels like home to me every time I go back. I would love to be like in Daikanyama right now. Good to see you, sir. Ricardo, I never forgot about you. I appreciate that. I would have forgotten about me, but thank you. Who got you assessed over a Monster and a SARB 35. I will say, I do still have my Monster, Ricardo. So I do have my Monster. That sounds wrong. And I still have my Seiko Sumo. And my significant, I gave the Seiko Presage that I did a review on several years ago. And I have a Grand Seiko that's getting serviced right now. That's a soft spot for me and some other stuff. Marcelo, if you can let me know, I will. I will be back in Japan. I would live in Japan. Randy Brickson, why are Grand Seikos so fat? You know, it's funny. I don't disagree with you because I have a Grand Seiko and I have a Patek Calatrava, and it is shocking how thick the Grand Seiko is compared to Calatrava. Now, to be fair, it is not a fair comparison because the Calatrava is a manual wind watch. Any automatic is going to be thicker in general. But I don't know the answer to your question, but I agree with you. Even compared to like a Datejust or a President, they're chunky, and I don't really know why. I mean, at least on my Grand Seiko, a lot of the bulk is taken up by the crystal, which is really weird. So on the bottom, there's a screw-in case back with like the sapphire, or maybe it's Hardlex on the back. That dome is pretty thick, and that makes up a lot of height on the wrist. And I don't know why they did it either. Honestly, I agree they are kind of chunky. CJR, I too watched the day. Question: have you ever handled a JLC Master 8-day perpetual? I'm intrigued. Hey, good to see you. I have not. The problem with JLC for me, at least, is they're actually not very common for me to see. I don't have any local retailers by me, and so the only ones I ever get access to are ones that are sold or ones that I personally owned myself. And the ones you tend to see on the pre-owned market are the more common ones. So you tend to see, again, the Master Compressor, the Memovox, especially the Reversos. The only time I've really been in a JLC boutique was in Taipei, Taiwan, maybe, or Hong Kong. I can't remember, but I have not seen that in person. Honestly, there's a lot of JLC I've never been able to handle because people don't really buy them, which I think is quite sad. Tibetster, you're kind of sick of Rolex, got your GMT Guinness last year. Oh, I love the Guinness. Yes, I love that watch. At the AD, I'm thinking of maybe a Grand Seiko SBG Y13, kind of looking at the Longines Alto Carbon, or maybe a Breguet like Archie's in the enamel. Those are all very different things. I would never have compared a Longines to a Breguet or a Grand Seiko. I think the question you'd ask yourself is what problem you're trying to solve there. Those are all really different. I mean, Longines has some good pieces, and they have some not so great pieces. I don't know the Ultra Carbon, to be honest with you. Let me look that one up. And actually, we can try something too. I don't know if I can share my screen or not. Let's try something else. SBGY13. So used to think they were completely unique. They're not. They're all, any of these models are all basically the same stamp dial, but I absolutely understand why you want this watch completely. Oh, wow. SC, is a Vacheron 56 a good buy, new at retail or overpriced? So the Vacheron 56, and I can try to pull that up. Let's see if I can get that to go as well. It's about 12,000 US, I want to say about that. a vintage, much smaller Patek or something, there's a lot of value here. But again, watches are not investments. No, you're not really buying this as an investment. Yes, I'll probably get over 12. So Tibetster, 12K for the chocolate. Maybe now some MSRP just went up. Yeah, Rolex, they raised their MSRPs again because obviously that's what they do. What are your thoughts on the Tudor Princes and day dates? Those are classic. I mean, those are from, and I can pull this up as well. I appreciate all the comments. I'm gonna not be able to keep up here. That you can find locally should be able to fix them. It's in a Rolex case, and obviously the design's timeless. I think these are great, really do. Been a while since seeing a YouTube Ragnar. Yeah, it has. This was a unplanned comeback, and appreciate that you tuned in. It's I was off for many years, and I don't know how I got sucked back into this, but it is fun. So thank you all for showing up. Joe Robertson, hello, welcomes, greetings from Fort Worth. Hey, Joe. Greetings from one Texan to another. Up in Fort Worth, you have access to more watch boutiques than I do, so that's cool. But yeah, we've been having some weird weather in Texas recently, have we not? Tibetster, you have a SBGE 263, but the 13 is a manual wind and only 10 miller stick wood is really nice bracelet. Great deals of you, but from Japan or Chrono 24. So would I buy it from Japan or Chrono 24? I had a good experience importing a Grand Seiko to the US, but there's a couple gotchas. So your tax exemption, if you're bringing it back to the US is the only market that I know, is based on how many people are in your party. So you get about $1,000 tax exemption per person. So if you're buying a $3,000 watch, you would basically need to have your total purchase across 3 people basically be that watch to offset the tax. And then I want to say anything over the untaxed amount is like 6% per $100, something like that. Don't get me wrong. So they are going to get you in duties, but if you're in the US, you're going to avoid paying sales tax. So the sales tax, I mean, where I live in Texas is, it's over 8%. And so that alone is a reason for me to buy it overseas. If you're doing it in person, is where I'd say that. If you're importing it from Japan, then you're kind of at the mercy of whatever agent inspects it when it comes in and how they decide to appraise it. So the person you buy it from will fill out paperwork, but if they put a lizard strap on it, I mean, they might get stuck in customs. It might change the value proposition. The duties are just such a wild card that you don't really know what's going to happen. And if you buy it from within the US or your home country, you still have to pay sales tax typically. So you're basically going to pay tax plus an unknown duty. I would probably lean on Chrono 24 within your own country if you find a good deal there, because you at least know what your total out-of-pocket cost is going to be versus having to guess. If you're in Japan, I would consider buying it from Japan because you can see it in person and make sure the paperwork is filled out correctly. Random Rob, oh hey, good to see you. Really good to see you. Yeah, you've been around for a long time, my friend. It's good to see you around. And yeah, I'm surprised to be back, but it's really nice to see you. It really is. Julius Caesar, regular Ultra Chron is a cool vintage high beat diver. Let's take a look at that. Regular Ultra Chron. style in general. We talked about the Vacheron 56 a minute ago or two. That to me is in that thing. That's a very like jet set, Mad Men kind of watch. I think that's really cool. Let's see. Julius, I think I fixed the bezel on the carbon variant. It's a bummer. Oh, I'm sorry. Tibetster, my audio is cutting out when I change my screens. I'm sorry about that. Thank you for the heads up. What I was saying is I think the Longines Ultracon is a cool vintage watch, kind of like we were talking about with the Vacheron 56. And what's really cool about that is it's just a classic design that is just going to age really well. I just think it's cool. Almost bought a JLC Ragnar perpetual calendar boomerang, but the dealer broke it after I said yes. So I ended up with a simpler Parmigiani. It was probably for the best. Settling for a Parmigiani is not a bad day. Parmigiani is, I mean, I think a lot of people, and this is no offense to JLC, I love JLC. I think a lot of people would put Parmigiani above JLC. So to your point, it probably was for the best. Ricardo, don't know if you want your next watch to be a blue Black Bay 58 or a Tudor Prince. Do you want more dress or do you want more sport? Those things have very different vibes. So I would say I think they're both good. Joe, too many dealers for your bank account. No good dealers down your way. No, we had. I should not call out names because I don't want to get in trouble. But we had several that were perpetually fake waitlisting me. So I was on waitlist for the Starbucks Submariner and for a Pepsi GMT because of course those are so easy to come by. And 4 years of me following up, I got nothing. And a lot of people said the same thing. They were very much unless you spend $50,000 on some jewelry for your spouse or something, you're not going to get anything nice. It was kind of a racket. So no, I don't have any dealers here that I liked until recently. I hear Zadok's going to open up here, and I've heard good things about them. Tobetzer, I bought a Citizen quartz from Japan for $6,200. Still had to pay California tax $600, then $200 import fees, $7,000 all in, and no problems. Oh, you're in California. Yeah, I go there for work very frequently, and between your fuel costs and your taxes, I wish you the best. That is no fun, but I'm glad you had a good experience. Ricardo, Jay, think of this. What if you had a friend in Japan who was a local, you gave him cash and he bought the watch, then you just take it home after the transaction? I like the way you're thinking. The problem with that statement is that if the local lives in Japan, they have to pay the local duties. So at least in Japan, I can't remember exactly what it is, but they charge locals tax too, right? So your friend would basically be paying the total all-in price with tax. I do think with the exchange rate, ultimately you'd still come out ahead because the Japanese yen is hugely devalued right now. The problem you would also have is if you did that, right, and then you bought it off of your friend, if you took it back through customs and didn't declare it, and they realized that you'd picked it up in Japan, you'd be in a lot of trouble. So you'd have to be, again, aware that your friend's going to be paying taxes and that you'd have to make up for that. And then ultimately you purchased it in Japan, which means that, you're going to get caught, potentially have to pay duties on your way back. Or if they send it to you, same thing, there's a high likelihood it's going to get pulled aside in customs and you're going to get hit at duty fees anyway. So it's, I don't know, there's some risk in that thought. Main Sakika. Hey Jay, hope you've been well back there. I'm number 3 on the wait list for a black dial 2-tone Daytona 126503 with my 80 in Belgium. I live in Michigan, hoping I get a call soon. Oh, hello. Greetings from Michigan. I was born and raised in Michigan in Oakland County, so nice to talk to somebody that is also originally from Michigan or obviously used to live there. The black dial 2-tone Daytona. I really don't understand why 2-tone Daytonas are so undervalued. And I've ranted about this. I'm sure people are sick of it, but it's like the stainless steel Daytona to me, I don't understand the hype behind it. And I say that as someone who does respect it a lot. I do like it. And I did own one. It's on this channel from 2014, maybe. Don't watch. It's a really old video. But I had a 116520 the first in-house movement Daytona. So it was a 4130 P serial black dial stainless. And to me, I've always preferred the two-tone ones. So the black dial one is honestly a favorite of mine. I used to have a replica of it when I was a kid. There's pictures of me from my high school graduation wearing one of those, a replica that said 24 hours Daytona on the case back. That's how you know it was a really low quality replica. I hope you get it. I think the two-tone to me is honestly my best bang for buck option. Before I bought the Bluesy, which is coming tomorrow, I also bid on a Champagne Daytona and lost. But the Daytona was my backup watch. That sounds really first world problem-y, but I love the Daytona. It just wears a little bit small on my wrist. Ricardo, Jay, where in California do you stop by, if you don't mind me asking? In short, all over. So I have to go up to San Jose to like Pleasanton area. But I mostly spend time in Orange County. So I'll go into like John Wayne Airport, and I have to go to Irvine, and I'll go into LA occasionally, like the LA Live area for like meetings. Huntington Beach, Newport Beach, Arcadia, Duarte, kind of all over. Tibetster, FYI, the Citizen is not just any quartz, any most accurate movement ever made, 1 second per year, and the most comfortable watch I've ever worn. Best price by far, even better than Jubilee. That says a lot. Yeah, I do think the Jubilee is great. I will say my favorite bracelet is actually the bracelet on the Breitling Navitimer. I guess it's now the vintage Navitimer. So I've had, I don't even know, 5 of these things on this channel. Every time I sell it, I buy it back. But like the A13322 and the A23322, the 90s to 2000s, that bracelet is, I think, the best bracelet of any watch I've ever worn. But I hear you, and I'm not a quartz guy, but I respect them a lot, and I'll have to take a look at that. I'm really glad you like it. Ricardo, you hate the Daytona. Maine, Sakika, Wayne County here. AD is in Belgium because my family has a stellar relationship with them. We've been customers there for 20 years. Got my day date, 18038 DJ service there. Oh, cool. Wayne County. I mean, that's right next to Oakland County. I used to go to Detroit a lot. Was actually just in Detroit last year before, and I go to like Saugatuck on the West Coast a lot. Detroit is really nice lately. I know that nobody wants to say that, and the news only wants to show pictures of burned out buildings downtown. But if you live there, the waterfront area is really, really nice. Campus Martius and all that. It's nice to go home and see how much that city's come around. It really is. And 18038 day date. I have an 18238 and used to have an 1803. So you have the single quick set. Yes, I like those a lot too. Really, really nice. And DJ2, great watch. Yeah, you're obviously doing pretty good. Now it's it drinks on me. Ricardo, you live in the San Jose area if you're ever around. I appreciate that. I do. I haven't been to San Jose probably in the last 6 months. I will. Yeah, I'll let you know. I would probably have to go up to Pleasanton at some point. I don't have any trips yet. I think we're gonna be on a travel ban a little bit, but I appreciate the invite. Well, I haven't totally screwed this up, and I appreciate everybody showing up today. I'm going to run off to dinner in a minute. Any last minute questions or topics you want to talk about before I jump off? And thank you so much for showing up today. I really do appreciate it while I figure this stuff out again. Itai Fairman. Great to see you, Jay. What's the biggest watch changes you've seen since you started the channel in terms of value? That's a great question. That's a really great question. Thank you for that. Honestly, the brand, I mean, this is not a surprise. The brand, well, I've seen 2 huge changes with Rolex and with Omega, I'd say for the most part. Omega has hugely raised their MSRP on watches. Shockingly so. The retail price on Omegas to me has like gone up 40%, I think, since I started doing YouTube videos. You used to be able to get like an automatic Seamaster when I started YouTube for like $3,000, $2,800. And I know with inflation, but still Omega's far outpaced inflation. The brand to me that has changed the most is Rolex. I was just talking to a friend of mine today. I mean, I remember back in 2015 or thereabouts, you could get a Pepsi GMT, you could get a Coke GMT 16710 90s model for $5,000 all day long. Those watches are now 12 grand, which is just crazy to me. The new Rolexes, the Hulk Submariner, when it was out, you could find below retail. I remember seeing the Rolex Batman for like $8,000 below retail. Stainless steel Daytonas 2014, you could buy a used in-house 4130 Daytona for under $10,000 quite easily in stainless. The Zenith ones were like $6,500. It was crazy. And those watches now are all in the teens or even higher. If I would have known now if I would have known then what I know now, those would have been my stock picks. I mean, all the vintage Rolexes and especially the GMTs and some of the subs went up in ways I never would have imagined. I'm honestly surprised at how expensive some of those watches have gotten and how much Rolex has raised their retail prices. That's probably the thing that shocked me the most. I guess, and the other one I'd say is, I guess the honorable mention is Seiko. You used to be able to find some of the Japan model Seikos for $300, and now they're all $600 or $700. Seiko's also raised their prices quite a bit. That's really shocked me. To Betster, what's the next watch you're thinking of getting? It never ends. It does not ever end. So I bought the Bluesy Vacheron Constantin Overseas 4740. That's the Gen 2, was on the list. I was kind of looking at multiple watches at the same time. The Rolex Daytona 116523 first generation in-house movement two-tone is on the list. I would love a Rolex Starbucks at retail. Probably not going to happen. I would happily take a current GMT Master. Probably not going to happen. And then Patek really got to me as well. So I do still look for decent deals on an annual calendar Patek. I would buy one if the price is right. And then randomly, Panerai Luminor is a watch that I'm still looking for one with a power reserve that I like for the right price. And I'll probably buy back another Nav a time or two. Yeah, I got a problem. There's quite a bit there. Joe, give a shout out if you're in the Dallas area. I appreciate that. I absolutely will. Thank you for that. And Maine, price out of the question. What is the one car you would drive and own for one day? Mine would either be an F50 or a Courier GT. Oh, you have great taste. Yes, those two would be on my list. A Pagani Zonda R Roadster would be on my list. A 993 GT2 would be on my list. A 356 Speedster would be on my list, and a 2005 or 6 Ford GT would be on my list, and I will take any of the above gladly. But with that, I really appreciate, again,